Hey, good evening, guys. Welcome to my channel. This is my take on Peter Vlaming, who is the guy that you just saw behind me. He's a Virginia high school teacher at West Point High School, French teacher, and he was fired on Thursday, this past Thursday, after refusing to use a transgender student's new pronouns. According to the Richmond Times-Dispatch, it's a case believed to be the first of its kind in the state of Virginia. Now, the state of Virginia, I imagine, is predominantly conservative. I'm not sure about the West Point area of Virginia. Let me know if you're from that area how conservative it is. There was a 4-hour hearing on this case. The West Point High School Board voted 5-0 unanimously to terminate Peter Vlaming. He's a French teacher at West Point High who resisted administrators' orders to use male pronouns to refer to a ninth grade student who had undergone a gender transition. So this was a female transitioning to a male in the ninth grade. This is a loaded topic. This has been a loaded topic for like the past 5 to 10 years, more so, especially now with the advent of technology that allows things like this to happen, with medicines, with technology that allows you to transition from a male to a female. And I'm not going to get into, are people confused in their gender? Are people confused in how they can be identified? I've talked about this at least 3 to 4 times now in much detail, that there are genotypic males that phenotypically behave as females. There are genotypic females that can phenotypically behave as males. It's science. It's proven. It's the chemicals in your body. It's the genes in your body. Some get suppressed. Some don't get suppressed. Some they act in different ways. They behave in different ways, and it causes you to, while you might be born with male body parts, still behave as a female, because you might not have the testosterone levels in your body, or you might not have the estrogen levels in your body. And there are so many things. There are so many different things that can happen biologically in your body, in your genes, in your genetics, that just don't function. And we say function as they should, because that's how in the past 10,000 years of humans being humans and males being males, as we understand it, it's not natural. It's not cancer, but to us it's not the norm. And so we have people that do not believe it should be a norm, and we have religions that have based their religious beliefs off of what is normal and what's not normal. And unfortunately, in many of our cases, we see a genotypic male or a genotypic female that phenotypically acts different as being unnatural. And it's unfortunate for people that go through this, but as Christians, me being a Christian myself, I believe that we have one basic underlying premise of how we should conduct ourselves when we are faced with people who have these decisions that they need to make, who might be confused, as we call them, who might not know what their gender is or how they should identify themselves, or who have chosen to identify themselves. There's a very simple solution to all this, but let's just read a little bit more of this story. So, there's a similar transgender rights case in nearby Gloucester County that eventually reached the U.S. Supreme Court. Vlaming's situation could present a novel legal case as public bodies continue to grapple with how to reconcile anti-discrimination policies with the rights of religious employees. The high school in West Point, a town in King William County, about an hour east of Richmond, has about only 265 students. I feel like that was my graduating class in Philadelphia. Vlaming, who is 47, who had taught at the school for almost 7 years, after spending more than a decade in France, told his superiors his Christian faith prevented him from using male pronouns for a student he saw as female, despite the female or the male obviously saying, "I would like to be referred to as a male." Vlaming agreed to use the student's new male name, but he tried to avoid using any pronouns, and I'm guessing he also tried to avoid those pronouns in French as well. he or him and she or her when referring to the student. The student said that made him feel uncomfortable and singled out. Now, this is interesting to point out. So let me read this again. Vlaming agreed to use the student's new male name, but tried to avoid using any pronouns. To me, this seems like the student or the teacher was actually willing to accept this student's new identity, but just didn't want to use pronouns completely. And to that point, I'm not quite sure where or how the student would feel uncomfortable or singled out. I have to side with the teacher on this. If I choose to use your new male name, then I am in a way actually working with you. Am I not? Is there something that I'm not getting about this part of the story? Despite the fact that I try to avoid using any pronouns at all. It's not like this isn't saying that the teacher still called the new male a she. This is completely saying that that Vlaming was actually using this student's male name, the chosen male name of this student. So I'm not understanding. So the administrator still sided with the boy, telling Vlaming he cannot treat his transgender pupil differently than he treats others. So I guess that's the bottom line for that. So while he may have been calling the transgender student by his name, he may have still referred to others as he, she, him, her, whatever. But when he had to directly speak to that student, he would just use that student's name rather than any pronouns at all. And I guess the student took offense to that and said that I'm being treated differently. The superintendent, Laura Abel, said that discrimination then leads to creating a hostile learning environment, and the student had expressed that, the parents had expressed that they felt disrespected. School administrators recommended that Vlaming be fired, saying he violated the school system's non-discrimination and harassment policies. Stacey Haney, who represents the school district, said, "Does this board expect its employees to follow its policies or not? Plain and simple." The non-discrimination policies were updated a year ago to include protections for gender identity, but Vlaming's lawyer, Sean Voyle, said there was no specific guidance on the use of gender pronouns. So a gray area, as always. And again, I will tell you really simply, as a Christian, just how to simply, completely get over this whole gray area. It's really simple. Basically, even as a public employee, Voyle said, Vlaming has his constitutional rights of his own. And so this, in a way, gets beyond being a Christian, because now you're not just saying you're a Christian. Now you're looking to constitutional rights. And while the constitutional rights might be based in Christian values, they are still constitutional rights that are not. You know, it's the Constitution and it's the Bible. There's a separation of church and state, obviously. So you can't really have both of them, right? So it basically said one of those rights that is not curtailed is to be free from being compelled to speak something that violates your conscience, Voyle said. And to conscience, again, I have one simple rule, if you're a Christian, how to make sure that, you know, when you're dealing with things like these, it doesn't violate your conscience. I'll get to it. So speaking in his defense, Vlaming said he loves and respects all his students and had tried to reach a solution based on mutual tolerance. That effort was rejected, he said, putting him at risk of losing his job for having views held by most of the world for most of human history. Again, using history to base your current views on today is never a good idea. There were plenty of terrible things that were done in history that we should not use as a precedent. I wouldn't go and enslave an entire race of people, because history shows us that at some point slavery was viewed as a good thing to do if you needed to get stuff done. So Vlaming continued to say that it's not tolerance, that is coercion. The hearing drew an overflow crowd made up largely of parents and students supporting a man they described as a model. As you can see, there were picket signs that were basically saying justice for Vlaming, and a stack of signs that sat by the door, but school officials said no signs would be allowed in the small meeting room. If there's no policy in place, how can they just let him go, said one 52-year-old parent. The proceeding also drew the attention of Equality Virginia, which is an LGBTQ rights group, that said the situation reveals the need for statewide guidance that will protect all students from discrimination at school. It's not clear if Vlaming's firing will lead to a wrongful termination lawsuit. Vlaming said he was interested in pursuing a legal appeal, but he wanted to consult with his attorney before announcing further steps. And I would say Vlaming also needs to consult with his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, if he is a true Christian. And let me just get to my point here, because I'm not. This article goes on and on and on, and I'm not trying to read much more. I think we have the gist of this story. But basically, if you are faced with a situation where there is a transgender person in front of you who you believe is a male or a female but wants to be identified as the opposite, and you say, no, my Christian values say that you blah 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 blah, quite simply put yourself in check and just remember, Jesus came and died on the cross so that we might love each other and that we might all be redeemed by his dying on the cross. And it's that simple and it's that easy. Love your neighbors as you love yourself. Love each other. That's the ultimate commandment. Jesus said, love one another. Now, if you love that person, if you would, if that person were to be you, how would you treat them? Many of us will say, I would condemn them and blah, blah, blah. But that's not what Jesus came to do. He did not come to condemn people. I mean, it's really that simple. I don't get the conscience. I don't get the Constitution. If you truly are saying that you are a Christian and that you believe in Christian values, then to me, no matter what someone comes up and says you, they could be from a prostitute like Mary when Jesus came and drew the line and told all those the rabbis or whatever, he who was without sin cast the first stone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who comes up to you. You treat them with love and with respect. And so if this transgender female who is now transitioning to be a male says, please use a male pronoun when you are talking to me, just do it. You can go back into your house and pray for them. You can, like, I feel like we as Christians, we are under assault. We are under attack because the world is changing in ways that we never expected it to change, but we should have been expecting it and preparing for it this entire time. But while we are in this world, we are not to be of this world. So while you can still call this male or female by the pronoun that they choose to be called, you can still go right back to your house, to your family, to your Christian prayer circle and say, look, I'm dealing with this. Please pray for me that I go about it the right way. Please pray that this person gets saved. Please pray. Like, there are so many other ways to go about this. You don't have to lose your job. You don't have to lose your values or your morals. Jesus knows our heart. Yes, people, and here's another thing. People say that in the end days we'll have to stand up for what we believe in, and this guy Vlaming even said, there are some mountains that we have to die on. I don't think that's the case. Jesus died so that all this would take place. We don't have to go and die on the cross. Like, someone already did that for us. It literally was done. And I'm not trying to preach a sermon here, but I just feel like we as Christians, we're taking too far of a stance that was already taken a long time ago on the cross. And that's the only stance that needs to be taken. If you're a Christian, show you are a Christian. Be loving, be accepting, be all those things that Jesus was. Be Christ-like, which is what Christian means. That's the bottom line. And that should be what guides us all. So I don't know who's going to watch this, but I just truly hope that in the future, we as Christians, because it's becoming really dangerous, where if we are to continue to promote this religion, we need to do it in a way that is loving and not in a way that pushes people away and continues to vilify us. Because right now, this guy is being vilified. Yes, he had supporters, but he continues to be vilified. There, the people like the lady in Kentucky that denied the rights of the two men that wanted to be married, the guy who had the bakery in Colorado who refused to bake a cake. Like, we are just continuing to be vilified, and it's mainly because of things like this. It's because the LGBTQ community, for the most part, is saying you're not accepting us. And it's the same way that Christians were vilified when blacks were being enslaved and when blacks were segregated. Christianity continues to be a lagging force in our community, and it's terrible and it's sad and it needs to change. We need to get back to being accepting and loving and just praying for people. That's the simple bottom line thing that we have to do. Love all people and pray for all people. I would love to know what everyone else thinks about this story. Again, I just think that it's unnecessary for folks to be losing their jobs, for people to be taking these grandstands against a ninth grader of all things. Like, come on, you're a 47-year-old man. For crying out loud, you've been to France. And you risk your job because you're not willing to say, all right, I'll call you whatever pronoun you want. Sure, out of love, I will do that. And then just go home, go to your church and say, look, this is the person I'm dealing with. I want to uplift this person, whatever. It's so easy. It's so easy. But let me know what y'all think, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.